is from Roger Rigby, senior engineer in Birmingham. What were your individual motivations for starting a new business back in '76?
I think we all realised in those days that the construction industry was fairly chaotic, the way buildings were procured. It was perhaps only a few years from when the RIBA plan of work was first produced, and we thought that we could do it better than the average way it was being done. So we saw a sort of a market opportunity to have a practice which was where there was a sort of coordinated approach between structures, civil, mechanical and electrical engineering. And I think the opportunity came up because of a reorganisation in the firm that we all were working for, and we took that chance, really, took that opportunity.
But I think a lot of it was really circumstance. When a place at a particular time and a situation arose where we could do it. So I think it just happened to be.
My question's from David Clark, partner in the Sydney office. What was your earliest breakthrough project?
I think, frankly, every job became a breakthrough job. You know, we started off with almost nothing, and in the northeast, in the bottom of a recession, we thought. So every job we got was a breakthrough job. But I think there were some jobs that came later on the building services side, which were some years later, but were very breakthrough in terms of what they did for the practice.
Well, I joined the practice in '79 really to help with running Edinburgh office, and shortly after joining the practice we got involved with the Daily Telegraph in Fleet Street. They were refurbishing their office building, and we took a client overview. We did so well with that job that they said we could design their new printing plant when they moved out of Fleet Street, and it was the first major project in Docklands. But the caveat for that was to open an office in London, and that was a mega proportion really, and it saw us through the early years of recession. And that was the foundation of London office. And we did most of the major printing plant as they moved out of Fleet Street. I did quite a bit of work for Robert Maxwell, with mixed feelings. We did in fact we started the Telegraph in London, but we finished another plant for them in Manchester before the London office. That's right, yeah. Then we got involved with the Evening Standard, Daily Mail. So it was very industrial, the early days of London office. But it obviously gave us a great momentum for moving forward into the commercial market.
I think starting London gave the practice a new platform. We worked on bigger projects with bigger architects. I think it was quite good. So we've got the printing industry, the financial industry, and developers. I mean, it worked pretty well.
Hi, my question is from Chloe Agg, a senior engineer in Birmingham. She says, Cundall's a great place to work, partly due to its values of innovation, sustainability and fun. Was this something you specifically set out to achieve?
The fun part was.
Yeah.
I think the early ethos of the business was to look after staff. When I joined, they had a profit sharing scheme and a pension scheme back there, and they developed a method of looking after their staff really. And in the early days of London office, I think our Christmas parties were renowned for their friendliness.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, but we believed if you enjoyed your work, then you would like to come and basically do a good job. The partners were always integrated with the staff, and we were one big team. In fact, we operated as a series of little practices within a larger one with the concept of partner teams. So we could always give our clients the benefit of partner involvement.
Hi, my question's from David Nui, who's a principal engineer in the Shanghai office, and he asked what's the most innovative project you've worked on and why was it so innovative?
The most innovative was the second low energy hospital study that we did for the Department of Health. The objective for us was to save 50% of the energy, and it was a very interesting project. The data handling was done with a borrowed BBC computer fitted with a maths coprocessor. The maths coprocessor was purchased as the sort of fee for borrowing the computer, really, and fitted into the computer. But it served our purpose, and we explored all sorts of alternatives and used what was really sort of cutting edge computer simulation technique, ESP program. And it was very interesting. You know, things like wind turbine was put in.
Yeah.
The combined heat and power, using emergency generators to produce heat as well as power, but using them at particular times of day. And I mean, air tightness was probably the most successful thing. Just stopping massive amounts of air infiltration into the building. But it was demanding, and at the end of the project it was quite interesting because the client was represented by a chap called Mike Singh at the Department of Health, and at the end of the project he said to me, "What do you think the next stage will be? Where do we go from here?" And I said, "I think that you need to look at the effect on the environment, not just the energy consumption, so taking into account embodied energy and so on." And very soon after that we got a commission from the Department of Health to write the energy and environmental brief for a hospital in Northern Ireland, which was a very fascinating extension of the work that we'd done.
When we took the telegraph, they sent Rick and I over to America for a week to learn about designing printing plan. And they employed an American company as advisors because no one had done a job of that magnitude at that time. It was fairly massive.
Yes, even for the yes.
Yeah, yeah.
My question's from Donald Slade, Managing Director in Qatar. He says, 40 years is an achievement to be proud of. Did you ever envisage that Cundall would be international and have engineers delivering very exciting multidisciplinary projects out of offices in continental Europe, the Middle East, North Africa, Asia and Australia?
I think Laurie's already made the point that the answer would be no. Only because it wasn't the way we saw ourselves going. Very short-sighted, looking back on it, I guess. I think we felt we'd had enough trouble getting to where we had at various times, and maybe we didn't have the courage or even sufficient arrogance to think that we could do it. Others who came along managed quite well on that score, I think.
My question's from David Collins, an associate in Singapore. Cundall was an early adopter of sustainable design. Are you surprised that sustainability is not part of everyday design and is still seen as an option or a specialist subject?
I suppose the problem is that clients won't pay for it, so unless it's regulations, then you've got to pitch for enough fee, don't you, or absorb it. I think it's quite surprising, really.
We used to find the corporate headquarter clients where they retained the building were more interested in sustainability and energy efficiency, whereas the commercial people, particularly in London, were looking for maximum profit and economic design. So, and I guess that philosophy still carries on today. You know, it's all bottom line driven, really.
In a way, I'm not surprised because of sort of, you know, the economics of doing things, but I think it's a pity, but I'm not surprised.
Hi, I've got a really good question from Hannah Murphy, a graduate lighting designer in Manchester. Her question is, in the early days of setting up the practice, what was the best piece of advice that you received and why?
The partners should remain involved in every job all the way through and not become grandiose. I think that we sit in our little boxes and the staff go off and do things, and that we stayed, and we did that. We stayed, as Laurie said, we had partner teams, and the partners stayed heavily involved in jobs. And I think that was actually, if it was advice, it was very good advice. You still practice that now.
Other advice is enjoy what you do. If you don't enjoy it, then why the hell are you doing it, really?
I remember having a conversation with a developer once who was doing a lot of warehousing, and I made some comment while I was standing having a drink about, you know, did he not feel sort of stifled just doing warehouse after warehouse when, you know, there was perhaps opportunities to do other things? And he said, no, he said, whatever job you're doing, what you get out of it is proportional to what you put into it. So the more you're prepared to put into it, the more interesting jobs become. And I think that's something which I think is true.
We started off at what we thought was the bottom of a recession, and then in '77 it got worse. But the practice by then was in development mode, and we absolutely took off at the beginning. It was fantastic to see, really, almost unbelievable even for us. And we then weathered quite a number of storms. It was only actually in the 90s that recessions really began to bite on us as a practice. We'd managed all the rest of them, and the fact that it's all come down to this is incredibly satisfying.
I think the biggest satisfaction is looking at the business now, how it's run and how it's grown. I take great pride in that.
My name is Callum Clenahan. I'm a graduate engineer here in London, and my question is, what advice would you give to graduates who are embarking on careers in engineering?
I would say that grads should work with the best engineers they can and learn from them, and they should develop to be the best. Your career will take off for that.
I think it's also important not to only concentrate on the engineering aspects of the job. You know, you're involved in a job with lots of other people, including the client, and the more you can understand what the client's trying to get out of it, and to an extent what the architect is trying to get out of it too, the better off the job will be, and certainly the better off you will be.
We used to have a little phrase in front of the Cundall magazine, which was mutual trust and understanding. So we had to try and understand what the client wanted out of the job, and trust your client and get him to trust you. And once you build up a relationship, you could actually do your best engineering. When you're new into a client, then you're very tentative. The more you understand their goals and he gets confidence in what you do, then you can actually put together your best engineering.
Hello, my question comes from Jinju Zhu from the Hong Kong office as a graduate engineer. And the question is, if you were to compare the development of our company to that of a person, how old would you say that we are now?
I think with the business evolving all the time, and if you maintain the youthful enthusiasm that's demonstrated now, and the business is still in its infancy, I think it'll always evolve. But the basis will be there, and it's early days.
Can I just say one thing, Johnny? The one thing to bear in mind is we had a ball. You know, we had from '76 onwards, we had just the most fantastic time as partners. It's a great industry, this, and you're very lucky.
What most impressed me about the session today was the friendliness of the partners and how they conveyed their enthusiasm about the industry and the company, and the pride at the end that they said they felt looking out at the company.
I can see that they're really all proud of what they've done and how it's blossomed into what it is now.
our founding partners. They seem very, very proud of our achievements here in this office and the company. So yeah, they seem like a bunch of very relaxed and proud guys actually. I think there's a very honest answers from the founding partners as well.
The partners really recommended to take things away from your peers, to learn from those people that are around you, learn from the people with the most experience, and knowledge is power.
Well, what most impressed me about the session was meeting the founder members, and seeing where it all started from. That was quite a privilege for me to see that.
I found it interesting that they didn't realise how big Cundall was going to get. I think they dreamed big, but actually we've become bigger.
When did you take over as managing partner?
I never took over as managing partner. There had never been a managing partner. So that in itself was quite an interesting start to the whole thing. The founding partners, I think, they all they started with the same equity at the same level, and they all agreed on one thing for sure, and that's that none of them was in charge. And it was very interesting as they came to the point where they were going to be exiting the business, that they sat down with the rest of us at the time, the next cohort, and we got in a business consultant to analyse how we might best operate the business. And they all agreed, all those present anyway, that actually the one thing that probably held the practice back was that they were all working in it, nobody was working on it, and that there wasn't a single point of responsibility for anything. So it was agreed in that meeting that we needed a managing partner as such, or a partner who's going to be in charge of a board that would comprise some professionals to help us with things that we'd all done on a part-time basis. I wound up being fingered by the rest of the partners to try and do that role. We put together a vision where we would sectorise, as we call it now, and that was actually a method of bonding all the different offices, but by drawing on the expertise we had in any one market sector from all the different offices, we were able to get people communicating and working together, which was, for me, the biggest challenge was actually to put the whole business together.
So how did that come about? What were the early steps in having more than 3 offices?
We had a great deal of talent in the business at the time, and we were losing engineers to Australia at the rate of knots. So when one of our brightest talents wanted to return to Australia, we badged him up as Cundall and took a plunge. There was a loose plan that this could be built into something that joined up along the way, and we'd have offices from here to Australia. The main aspiration really was to hang on to the talent, because in those days the world was opening up. In 2003 people could travel more freely. Most graduates were or undergraduates were doing gap years, or knew people who were. So the idea of international business seemed important. So that was good, it gave us that opportunity. And once we started getting our heads around that, then it seemed very logical that we ought to try to protect the business against recessions in the UK. So getting involved in the Gulf, which had this endless supply of oil and mountains of money, seemed a really clever idea. So Richard Stratton put his hand up when we were casting around. That was probably the most strategic move to open an office that we've actually made the whole way along ever since. I think other than that, it's all been about providing people with opportunity in the business, and it's been much more that than a plan, we need to be in so many countries, we need to be such and such a size. The expansion through the UK came very much through, we'd reached a size where competing with, we needed to compete with national practices to justify the fees and take on the type of projects we wanted. Frameworks became the order of the day. We couldn't claim national coverage with 3 offices on the east side of the country. We had work in Manchester already. While I was in Australia looking at setting up the Sydney office, I bumped into somebody who seemed perfectly suitable to set up an office in Birmingham, and was very keen on the idea. So with that we got a Birmingham office at the same time as we found someone to lead a new office in Manchester. So it wasn't a particularly planned out in a definitive way, but it was built on an aspiration, I think, of all of us to strengthen a business that we had for the people who were already in it.
How did we find ourselves in Asia?
We had someone who was working in our Sydney office who was very keen to go and try out working in Asia. We saw Shanghai as gateway to what was looking like becoming the biggest market in the world. Our Australian business was very much focused on sustainability, and the Chinese were deeply interested in that. There were already a number of Australian architects working into China, and particularly in the field of sort of lower energy buildings and so on, where they had some expertise, a lot of which was founded on Cundall expertise in Australia. So it was a fairly natural journey to travel with them, and we found a Mandarin-speaking engineer who'd worked with some of our people in the past, who was keen to go and do that. So we embarked on that. And a couple of years later, one of the younger engineers in Sydney said he fancied having a go at setting up an office, but he fancied Hong Kong. So that's how we got there.
What's been your most memorable Cundall moment so far?
Finding someone to take over as managing partner. I think the greatest moment for me really was when it became apparent that the international business was genuinely viable and genuinely making a proper contribution to Cundall, and was being recognised internally. For me, it's been really important that the sort of single culture and the willingness to help everybody across the business has so demonstrably played a big part of what's happened. I think the fact that anybody in here could ask for help from somebody anywhere else in those 19 offices, and vice versa, is I would say it's unique to Cundall. Other people I speak to don't have that. They have a lot of business barriers standing in the way. You have to go and find authority to work on a project from another office or another company, because they tend to view themselves in company structures.
What type of business would you say you've created in your time in charge?
I wouldn't claim to have created anything. I think I've had the honour, I suppose, of being at the centre of the kind of decision-making process. But the ideas have all been other people's ideas, and the effort has all been other people's efforts. My effort really has just been to try to coordinate that and empower and encourage other people to do the things that have all been done. That's, none of it's mine. I do feel a sense of pride that it's all happened while I've been managing partner. Well, what has happened so far happened to that level, but I don't claim ownership of any of it. I mean, I've been fairly consistent. The purpose of this business is really to provide opportunity for the people that are in it, and that comes basically with career opportunity, pride in what they've been able to do as a Cundall person, the projects they've been able to work on, and the places they've been able to go. For me, I've had the pleasure of joining a company that was, it was 12 people when I turned up. I didn't really know any of the rest of it, and in fact the rest of it didn't have much relevance.
What age group are we as a business? Are we a youth, teenager, middle-aged?
I would hope it's still a teenager and stays one forever. Cocky in parts and sulky maybe occasionally, but generally full of energy and not hidebound by the past. Oh, my final message would be a little bit similar to Mike's. I really hope other people are able to work within Cundall and enjoy a similar journey and get as much out of working in this industry as I've been able to. It's been fantastic. I haven't had to change companies. The company's changed around me, and I've been able to enjoy all of that. And I really hope other people get the same opportunities or take the same opportunities. It's still a business where people can really shape what they do in it. They just need the courage, convictions.